I don't remember a time where he wasn't old, though.
No, I agree.
Welcome to Sincast, presented by CinemaSins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Sincast. This is Chris Atkinson from CinemaSins, joined as always by the voice of CinemaSins, Jeremy Scott.
Hello.
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Boom shakalaka.
Boom shakalaka.
All right. Been a while since anybody has yelled out loud about something, so anybody got a rant?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I'm as mad as hell!
You've never seen me very upset.
Lord Jesus! Lord Jesus!
I'm tired of the goddamn technology invading my goddamn restaurant experience. Especially when, in one particular new form, you're just harvesting. You're just harvesting.
Mm-hmm.
There's a restaurant that we've been to, the three of us, and they take your phone number when you order your food. And you're like, well, this is awkward. I usually just decline when somebody behind a cash register asks for my phone number.
It's not a big place.
No, thanks.
It's not like a Cheesecake Factory
Yeah,
where you get lost down the hall and shit like that.
No, this is a very small restaurant.
Yes.
But the purpose is that when your food is ready, they will text you.
Mm-hmm. Now,
They will also set that food on a counter that is no more than 10 feet from where you are seated at a table. They could not only just yell out, Jeremy, your fucking food's ready, but you could probably just see. But they want my phone number. And you know what? What's the over-under on how long it takes before I start getting marketing texts from this?
I've already gotten them.
Yeah. So there's another restaurant my wife and I went to. It's a national chain. I'm not going to say which one because I'm ashamed. But
Cheesecake Factory?
They also asked for our phone number when we walked in.
When you walked in?
Yes. And I thought, this is very strange. The other new thing that I've seen, 2 different restaurants now, no longer even have fucking menus.
Yeah.
They have a QR code on the table, and I'm expected to scan that shit and pull up the menu digitally on my tiny-ass phone. Now, look, I realize you probably want to save money on paper menus, plastic menus. I don't know. Never really seemed to be a huge problem before. Like, never heard anybody be like, the worst thing about the restaurant industry is I have to buy menus every 2 days because they keep getting tore up. Doesn't happen. But here you have a national chain that's like, we're not going to do menus anymore. We're going to digitize it. And I'm sure they saved a buttload of money. But here's the thing. Not everybody has a smartphone, even though it feels like they do.
That's true.
Not everybody's smartphone has a QR code app. Not everybody's smartphone camera can do QR codes, right? Mine can, but my previous model of phone, I had to have a separate app from the camera just to do QR codes. QR codes are also stupid, and I hate everything about them. And this is only going to serve to keep them alive longer than necessary, and also I don't do so good with up-close vision. I'm old now, and I can't view your fucking menu on my phone without pinching and zooming a million times, whereas I could just pop on some eyeglasses and read your fucking menu.
I will say that all of what you just said is valid, but no. I did hear that when the first time I went to a restaurant that had a QR code menu thing, and I can't remember which one this was, they told me it was because of pandemic stuff, that they didn't want to keep circulating menus that had everybody's hands all over them. Now, that may have been a bald-faced lie for them to just go ahead and start taking all the data from your phone, shit like that. But that sounded reasonable to me. I don't know if that means that they're going to stop doing menus forever.
I suppose you're right.
But you're right. Looking at, why can't the menu just be around, like on a wall or something?
Why can't you take the QR code sticker you just stuck on my table and make that the fucking menu?
Yeah, exactly.
Just put the menu on my table.
It's true. That's true. Yeah, or have a fucking chalkboard like they do at the hipster restaurants.
I will admit, the more egregious offense is taking your phone number when you order food because those fuckers down the street they don't need that food delivery system.
Yo, if you have a large bar area that's separate from the restaurant where people go and hang out as they're waiting, if there's a wait or something like that, and you want to text them when their food is ready or when their table is ready, that's one thing. place that we went to, you could whisper, Jeremy.
Well, the other thing is,
you'd be like, okay, there it is.
The second place we went, they took our number, we sat down, and then they texted us when our table was ready. You know, they used to do that with fucking pagers.
Right.
And if it's pandemic, we don't want you to touch a pager. Why are you still giving me fucking silverware and cups? Is it safe to be in here at all if I can't touch a pager?
Exactly.
I'm done. My rant is over.
Exactly. No, it's a good one. Because I mean, I've been hearing a lot about things that all sorts of businesses have started doing because of the pandemic that really just kind of. I was watching a video randomly the other day of like scams in Vegas. Don't fall for this or whatever, and I'm like, God, I hope I didn't fall for any of these. But no, the guy is going through all this stuff, and he's like, now all of a sudden restaurants have started to charge convenience fees or restaurant fees or location fees or something like that as a hidden thing that they don't tell you about before you get your bill. And it's like they're all doing this right now to try to sort of get back a lot of that money they lost during the pandemic, but they won't tell you about it. It's like, he says, you want to go in the restaurant, you want to be inquisitive and, and be like, do you have these kind of fees or whatever? Because I don't know how much a fee would be to go to a restaurant. They would, if you went to
sit in the restaurant, like there's fees in the restaurant, not even just for takeout.
When they get your bill, you get it's just a standard whatever fee like the phone company would throw on.
Interesting.
I didn't know about this. I saw this on a video, and for all I know, he was wrong. But I don't know why you'd lie about that.
Yeah, it's like when you get your Comcast bill and there's like $13 administrative fees. Like, what the fuck is that? I never signed for that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand. When you order Grubhub or Uber Eats or something like that, there's always the restaurant fee, then the delivery fee, then the tax, and then the tip. And I've kind of accepted that. That's just the way it goes for convenience. But if you're at the restaurant and they're just either bringing the food or you're picking up the food, fuck a bunch of that.
And they don't tell you about it either.
No, that's bullshit.
I'm gonna rant about sports. There's this thing, I don't know. I think I used to be kind of a curmudgeon about people celebrating and stuff like that in baseball. Like, I always felt like whenever somebody admired a home run, they were sort of, when they'd stand there, they were trying to add extra pain by just kind of being like, look at how badass I am and how shitty you are. This ball's flying up into the stands and everything. And over time, it's like, okay, now I kind of get it. Okay, you hit a ball that just is majestic. Don't you want to see it?
Yeah.
Don't you want to see it go as far as it goes instead of like, I was taught at an early age, you hit the ball and, act like you've been there before, put your head down, run like it's going to be a double or something. If they hit a ball they know they got, I can see wanting to just kind of take a look at that because everybody else is. And, but anyway, this actually doesn't have anything to do with like admiring homers. It's just celebrations in any kind of game when your team has done something that is, let's go to the dugout or let's, we won the game. Awesome. There was one over the weekend. Chris Archer, was pitching for the Mets and against the Pirates. And he had a sort of, I don't know, I think it was a prolonged at bat, but there were some pitches I think got missed and he thought he struck the guy out and all that. And then finally the guy hits it and lines out. And Chris Archer's like, yeah, jumps up and down. And why wouldn't you, right? Mm-hmm. And this guy took offense to that. And they started getting into this whole like shouting war of words. Baseball's gotten to this point. It has been this way for a really long time now. I guess they think that bench clearing brawls help the game in some way. But there's
nothing ever comes.
Nothing ever happens. There's only like, I think 3 brawls in the history of baseball that have ever had landed punches or anything like that. I would advise you to find the 1984 Braves-Padres bench-clearing brawls.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they're the best.
That one in the Nolan Ryan, Robin Yunt, right?
Robin Ventura.
Robin Ventura,
I like
where he
the
just
one-
fucking wails on him.
Yeah,
for-
yeah.
I like the one. Was it Pedro who just popped the little bald man?
Oh, yeah, Don Zimmer.
Yeah,
Don Zimmer.
That was awesome.
Yeah, Don Zimmer came up and, oh, no, this is terrible.
His hat flies off. He does a somersault.
Oh, my God.
That's
Everybody
awesome.
everybody was worried that guy was going to die. When
he barely touched.
yeah. I used to be this way, though. I used to like, it always sucks when your team has done something and the other team has made some devastating blow in the game. And then they're like cheering and all that, and you're like, "Fuck you!" But you would do the same thing.
That's the beauty of sports of doing the same at home, and then saying "fuck you" to the other team.
Right. And I for a while there, I thought there was only one end game to this: was that you were trying to show somebody up. No, it's not that. It's that you were excited that you did something amazing. And baseball has been in this rut for a really long time, where they just don't. There's too many people who are not allowing people to have fun and everything, and there's too much like anger. Like Jose Bautista hit that home run in the playoffs a few years ago, where dude just went crazy because Bautista just like he that's the most admired bat throwing home run I've ever seen in my life.
I thought it was awesome.
Oh, it's the best. It's one of the best. It's one of the best baseball videos you can ever find. But then they got into a big, huge brawl over it, and it's just like, I mean, considering what had happened, and won't get into all the story, but considering what had happened in the previous half inning and leading up to that, everybody would have done that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't understand if baseball isn't ever going to if you're not going to let baseball players fight or they'll get suspended or whatever, then stop the bench clearing brawls. Hockey did that a long time ago. If you got off the bench, you're suspended. But we'll let these other guys fight if they want to.
Yep.
And they'll just take their penalties and move on. But they need to do that with baseball, because the bench clearing brawl, nobody gives a shit about the brawl, because it's all people like, hold me back, bro, hold me back.
Yeah.
Just let the people
It's a waste
celebrate.
of fucking time.
Just let people celebrate. It doesn't matter anymore, okay? Just let it happen.
Did you see Aaron Judge when he hit that home run against Houston, and he rounded third and like tugged his shirt the way Altuve did when he had the mic on?
Oh, yeah.
When he was like trying to tell his teammates, "Don't take my shirt off because you'll reveal that I got this microphone on." And so Judge hit a home run and did the same kind of tug around third base, and the Astros got all butthurt about it. As far as I'm concerned, the Astros are fair game to make fun of for all of time.
Yeah.
Baseball is weird about this, man. Hockey, it has a little bit of this. Like there was when Ovechkin used to really do his crazy celebrations when he would score. There was some blowback to that, and some people wanted to hit him extra hard. But you look at basketball when the series will be over by the time this comes out. But the Suns and the Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo in the last couple of games have made otherworldly plays. And at the end of the most recent game 5, as we record this, he took this ridiculous alley-oop. I don't know if you saw this. He took this ridiculous alley-oop in the waning seconds of the game and just did something that maybe 2 people on the planet could do. He was up with his chin over the rim and got it in. And he turned to the camera, not to the other players or anything like that, turned to the cameras and fucking flexed. Now, that guy has muscles on muscles. Yeah. He's like Bane, basically, right? He's the Greek version of Bane. And he flexed, and it was awesome. It was fucking rad, man. Now, back in the day, you saw people flexing in each other's face. You saw Mutombo doing the finger wag right in somebody's face. It's a little bit of a dick move. I loved it. It's good TV, but it's a dick move. Flexing and getting the crowd in there and really pumping yourself up and your teammates up. Same thing with football, really, American football, where you're not allowed to show up the receiver if you've got an interception or the other way around.
I don't know, though.
But you can jump around with your teammates and fucking just go nuts. That's good TV, and that's natural celebration. You should be able to do that.
For a touchdown, The problem with football is that these fools want to celebrate a 3-yard gain that gets a first down by standing up and making the most dramatic point to the other end zone like I just fucking saved Jesus' life.
Now you're sounding like an old man.
No, that is dumb. It wastes fucking time. What are you
does.
proud of? 5 yards? Get back behind the line.
I agree. There's some parts where it doesn't make any sense. There was a game, weren't the Raiders were like 0-10 one year, and they started they beat some team they shouldn't have beat. But there was a drive at the end of that game where the Raiders are, it's like, I don't know, about the 40-yard line or so. Raiders get a sack, and there's very little time. The offense is going to have to line up pretty quickly. And the two guys,
I remember
the two guys
this.
who made
Yes.
the sack are doing all this low fives, high fives,
Yep.
dancing around, and it's like, guys, do you know what the game situation
Didn't they snap it and they got an offside?
No, they got back.
People need to be more like Marvin Harrison. You do something,
Shoot people at a car wash?
you drop the gun, and you walk calmly away.
He acted like he had been there before.
That's right. The Braves had been on a couple of these. One I was with my team on. The other one I wasn't. There's two famous Brian McCann yelling at the batter as he rounds the bases, and the fielders are doing it too. But there was one where I think it was Carlos Gomez, who's playing for the Brewers, was trying to hit a home run because this one pitcher that was on the mound had hit him, and it was clearly not on purpose. But this guy was just like, I'm going to hit a home run. And by fucking fate, this guy hits a home run. It couldn't have been more maddening to see a guy up there obviously wanting to swing for the fences, and yet you just threw one right down the middle for him to do that very thing. And he just looked at the pitcher all the way. That was a clear showing up type of thing. And I was pissed off. I was happy that Brian McCann yelled at him and everything. But then Jose Fernandez, who unfortunately died at a very young age.
Oh, yeah.
There was a game where Evan Gattis hit a home run that was just like, admire that kind of home run. And Jose Fernandez got a little miffed at it when he did that. So then Jose Fernandez got up and he hit a home run. It was his first home run that he'd ever hit. And he admired it, just like Evan Gattis did. And everybody on the Braves was like, umbrage. Whoa, differences.
No differences. That's going to be our new catchphrase.
That's right. And it became this whole thing where it was like, like even the Marlins manager was like, I'll have to talk to the kid because that's not how you do things. It's like the fucking Braves guy did the same thing.
Yep.
He did the same thing.
Yeah.
And when he hit his, which was clearly gone when he hit it, you should be able to admire that. That's your first home
This
run.
is a microcosm of American politics, right? A Democratic leader says something that contradicts what he said before, and then all the Republicans are like, he flip-flopped. But if it happens on the other side, the Democrats are like, he flip-flopped. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. They just keep accusing each other of the same shit. And they keep doing the same shit. Both people admired the home run. Nobody did anything wrong in that scenario.
Yep. And plus, when they start throwing at each other, that shit gets real. Because that can get away from you and move from the shoulder up to the fucking head. And
Didn't some guy just take a line drive to the face and have to go to the hospital?
fairly recently, I remember.
It has happened, but I don't remember if it's happened in the past couple of weeks or anything. But
All right. Well, I've got a quick one, and it's about algorithms.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I've long had the issue of you watch one YouTube video, and then all of a sudden all my suggested videos are the exact same thing. For an outtake, I looked up a David S. Pumpkins skit, which is just one of my favorites ever. You can take so many different selections from that clip. I love it. But all of a sudden, every fucking suggested video was SNL greatest sketches of all time. Bill Hader breaks character. Jimmy Fallon fucks a pig and shit like that. And I'm like, I've watched other things too. Like, sprinkle that in, sure, but it's all that. Now, that's not a terrible thing because if you're watching a CinemaSins video, a lot of CinemaSins videos come up, and that's pleasant. You should totally click through on those. But YouTube be YouTube. Not all that upset about it. Netflix is a little hit and miss about what they recommend after you've had your selection of stuff. Usually all right. Like, we think you'd like this. All right. You know, most of them are things I've already watched. Tell you who runs amok, though, is Amazon. Amazon Prime. You watch one movie out of 40 that you've watched on Amazon Prime. They're going to recommend only that movie. So, for example, I wanted to watch Porky's.
Okay. All right.
If you've never seen Porky's, it was the quintessential horny teenager. It's set, I think, in the 60s, 50s, 60s, something like that. But it came out in the early 80s. And it was famous for having a very inappropriate peeping shower scene.
Yep. And then all 80s movies then had a peeping something.
Indeed, yes. Now, Porky's, I remember after watching it all the way through when I was an adult, it's like Saturday Night Fever. Everybody thinks Saturday Night Fever is all about disco and happiness and all that stuff. No, it's about staying alive on the streets of New York in the 70s, and that shit wasn't all that pleasant. There's abortion, there's drugs, there's death, there's all kinds of crazy shit.
I like how you mix abortion in the middle of all.
Well, no, it's heavier themes than you think of when you think of Saturday Night Fever. Same thing with Porky's. Porky's is a lot of racism, a lot of homophobia, a lot of authoritarianism. It's weird, but everybody only remembers that thing. So I watched Porky's. I watched some of Porky's. Didn't even watch the whole thing. Watched the shower scene. And then I turned it off. And I've watched other things, The Boys, a few other Amazon things. All of a sudden I go, you may like this. Scroll down to that thing, and it's Revenge of the Nerds, Gas Pump Girls, Where the Boys Are, Hard Bodies, Loose Screws, Can't Buy Me Love, Porky's Revenge, Private Resort, and on and on and on and on. It's all horny-ass teenage 80s comedies. And I'm like, man, I've watched also Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I've watched, like, The Talented Mr. Ripley and Manchester by the Sea. Like, it's not all horny shit. But just because I dared to dip my toe in the Porky water, everybody's like, well, you must want ski school.
This is just like porn. You watch one bondage latex porn video, and then that's all that shit's going to serve you.
You've got a very good point.
For the rest of your life.
You've got a very good point. All of a sudden, well, you obviously love that shit.
Yes. You got off to this last time. Let's fill the whole page with it.
I'm wondering, and you're right about that, and it's the same. It's what I was talking about with the YouTube thing a couple weeks ago or whatever. I think the issue with that particular movie is that probably everybody else, like most of the people who have watched Porky's, want to see the same type of movies after that.
That algorithm's working for everybody but Barrett.
Right. So
to my credit, I have seen many of those movies that were already recommended, including Ski School, which you just watched recently.
Sure. I'm just saying that I think that's what goes into it is, and it may be the same thing for the YouTube one. Is just that if you watch this movie, they've got the data that says you are likely to watch these other ones more than you are to watch more stuff like Portrait of a Lady on Fire. That's my 2 cents about that.
Yeah, I mean, I just wish they would, like Netflix. I feel like Netflix does a decent job of this, of like taking the total of your viewing and saying, and they've got that match system, right? Like you click on something, 98% match of what we think you would like. I don't know how reliable that algorithm is either, but it seems like it points you in the right direction. Amazon Prime, not so much. Not that I wouldn't watch Hard Bodies or Private Resort, or Ski School,
Can't Buy Me Love.
Or Can't Buy Me Love.
Which, that's a weird one to throw in the middle of all that, because that's not...
Which one?
Can't Buy Me Love. That's not.
That's true.
That's not a horny 80s comedy.
No, but
true.
it was in the. I mean, it was horny. It just was not. It's not like those other movies.
Right.
So yeah, get your shit together, Amazon. Get your boy back from space and put him on the ground and have him fix my algorithm.
Yes. All right. Does anybody have any recommends and warns?
Recommends and warns.
Totes Amazeballs.
It won the Academy Award
Oh, for what?
for Best Movie Ever Made.
Recommends and warns.
Yep.
I went to the Belcourt for
Nice.
the first time in like 3 or 4 weeks since the pandemic, but 3 or 4 weeks ago I went there. They were playing Zola, which is a movie that I was very interested in.
Riley Keough.
Yep, Riley Keough is in this movie, and
Is this the one that's based on the
Yes.
tweet storm?
just on the tweet storm from someone I think that's like at Zola or at some whatever. But Taylor Page is in it from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Oh, nice.
She plays Zola. Riley Keough is the other chick that she's with and everything. I'm going to warn this movie though.
Oh, really?
I think. Look, I there's no doubt that there's going to be people who like this movie. I think maybe possibly my own expectations for how wild this story is that she's about to tell probably ruined this for me. When I've seen a million movies. I've seen a lot of weird, fucked up stories. This story, basically, she's a dancer, stripper, whatever. And she runs into this girl Riley Keough plays Stephanie. They become like BFFs immediately. And a day later, Riley Keough is texting her, "We should go to Florida and we should do this and that for $3,000." And it's like just dance for people. That's what she thinks. So a day after she's met this girl, she's going down to Florida. That is a wild story for sure. This story is wilder than anything that I've ever done, so I can't really judge, right?
Right.
It's just that I've seen so many stories. I mean, if you watch Spring Breakers or these type of movies, it's like, all right. I mean, I've seen this kind of thing before. She finds out, okay, making the money is not really for the dancing. It's going to be for having sex with strangers later. And so the whole movie basically, like the sort of the turning point of this movie is that Stephanie ends up having sex with these guys, and her pimp is like doing this for like $50 or some crap or whatever. This is how much she's charging. And Zola is like, pussy is thousands of dollars, man. It's worth thousands. It's not worth just hundreds or whatever. It's like maybe $300, maybe not 50, but 300. So she takes it over basically and starts charging all these dudes thousands of dollars, but she doesn't get in on it at all. It's just Stefani doing it the whole time. And there are some twists and turns with people that they meet. Stefani has this boyfriend who like stupidly starts talking to this dude and befriending him and telling him things about what they're doing down in Florida and everything. And there's some just that, like there's a couple of twists and turns here, and there's some crazy things here and there, but I've seen so much crazier. You've seen too much. I've seen too much.
Yeah.
So watching this, I mean, the performances are fine. I just didn't get into it. I wasn't into the vibe of this movie whatsoever. And I may not be the right audience for this movie. We totally admit that. But I also felt like this was a story that was so wild, so out there.
That's how it's marketed too, right?
That, oh my God, you won't believe, your jaw will drop at all the stuff that happens. And I was like, I've seen Hangover. I've seen
Spring Breakers.
I've seen Spring Breakers. I've seen, I mean, none of this is new. So, so I'm warning Zola. Zola's got a 6.9 on the IMDb, and I'm sure it's like got a 95 or something on Rotten Tomatoes.
88. Yeah, close.
I disagree.
All right. I like it. Strong.
Yeah, that's the whole marketing, man. The whole marketing is this is the craziest story you've ever. This is A24, right? That really leapt on this as soon as they saw the thread.
And there's a point where in the trailer it says, "Now watch every move this bitch makes," and it's like, what moves? By the end of the movie, I was like, what moves? And by the end of the movie, I was sitting there going, oh, well, this is where it really gets crazy, right? And it's the end of the movie.
Ah, nice. Nice.
This is the way it went for me. So, yeah, I was so expecting more, and I don't know what I'm missing from this that everybody else is seeing.
Did your buds like it?
Oh, I watched this by myself.
Oh, okay. It's also got Coleman Domingo in there, also from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Yeah,
a little reunion there. Did Taylor Page play Ma's girlfriend, assistant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the one that Chadwick Boseman fucks in the I don't know. It's there's a point where they're alone. Or
Yeah.
And they're knocking on the door, and they're like, "Hey, stop fucking!
Stop fucking!
Hey, buddy! Stop
Fucking here, dicks and fucks.
Yep.
I will recommend a 2012 movie I never got around to seeing that you've probably all seen and loved called Robot and Frank.
I am not aware of this.
I've not seen it.
Oh, it's so charming. It's Frank Langella playing Frank. Probably easy for him to...
Be funny if he was playing robot.
It would be funny. James Marsden is his son, and Langella's got some dementia issues, and he doesn't want to admit them. On the surface, this is a very familiar setup. But the sci-fi element is that he gets a helper robot to come and live with his dad, Frank. And it can do things like wash the dishes, have conversations with him. It's a smart robot. It's basically like a robotic nurse, housekeeper. And Frank is mad. He's, of course, like if you've ever known anybody who's in dementia, some of the anger comes from the confusion. Some of the anger comes from not wanting to admit what's happening to their brain. So he resents this robot. He's mean to it. He keeps cussing it and telling it untoward things. Frank, as it so happens, is a retired cat burglar. And slowly over time, as you might expect, the robot starts to win him over. And it's kind of an odd couple scenario. And I think it would have worked just fine with the sci-fi conceit under the family dementia dilemma. But it goes another level when he starts teaching the robot how to be a thief and how to be a cat burglar. And then he recruits the robot to be his helper, and he starts cat burglaring again. One of the things this movie does really well that I was surprised by reminded me of the Father, Anthony Hopkins movie you watched recently, where they play tricks on the audience a couple times in terms of his dementia. And I really don't normally... I probably say too much about these movies, but I really don't want to spoil what that means or where this story goes. He's got a daughter who doesn't think the robot is good for him, even though the son does. I was just really charmed and captivated. Really good performance from Frank Langella. And it ended in a way that I felt was perfect. So there you go. Robot and Frank.
All right.
I'm trying to think of tone-wise what I would compare it to. It's more like Stranger Than Fiction than it is like The Father or like a serious drama.
Is it like The Beaver in any way or something like that?
A little bit, yeah. It's
Lars and the Real Girl.
Yeah. It's a playful drama. There's real issues there, but it's a fun movie. I think you're going to have fun with it. There you go.
All right, nice.
Is it Frank Langella or Langella?
Probably the one I didn't say.
I actually don't know, but I kind of feel like he's had an overlooked career.
He's great.
He's been great in just about everything. He was terrific in Frost Nixon. Maybe his best role. He's great in Dave.
Yeah.
I don't remember a time where he wasn't old, though.
I agree.
I don't like you see Peter O'Toole in Lawrence of Arabia or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, he was a young man, and see Brando in Streetcar, like on the waterfront. But like, I don't remember like an early Frank Langella production where I'm like, oh yeah, that was him back as a young. He was probably on like Dark Shadows or something like that. But like, yeah, I feel like he's had almost everything. He's great in Trial of the Chicago 7 with a very, unseemly role.
He makes a great racist.
He makes a great racist, that Frank. But yeah, I feel like, he's been underrated. He does have kind of a type that he plays.
Yep.
But his Nixon, I think his Nixon was the best Nixon portrayed that I've ever seen.
I think it is. It's
'Cause
better.
it's not a
better than
caricature.
Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, it's not a caricature.
No, he's playing him straight.
Yeah.
He's not doing an impression.
Yeah. And it's easy to.
Kind of interesting. He doesn't have any big movies in the start of his career. And I'm looking at his, Masters of the Universe.
Oh, he was Skeletor.
Wow.
He was fucking rad in that.
Yeah.
Which he was almost 50 by the time that came out.
Yeah, he's always been old.
So
dude.
that's what you're saying is that, he didn't really get, into the consciousness of casting directors. Like Dave is the first one that I see here. All the Body of Evidence is in here too. And 1492 Conquest of Paradise.
That was, I remember really liking that movie when I was 12
But he
years
really
old.
takes off, I think, after Dave. And yeah, so once he takes off, yeah, he's already in his 50s and 60s by the time.
And he's had white, gray hair the entire time. So it's not like, he's that's the young Buck Frank right there. He's probably like a fucking IT consultant until he got into Hollywood. But he's got a nice little nest egg now.
Oh, I'm sure he's doing all right.
Frankie L.
He was, he either dated or was married to Whoopi Goldberg at one point.
Seriously?
Yep.
Oh, nice.
I obviously don't
Well,
care.
she's run out of dudes. She went through Ted Danson and Franklin Joe. That's it.
Yeah, those are the only two men alive.
She probably fucked Patrick Swayze back in the
Probably
Ghost
did.
days.
Probably did.
And Patrick Stewart.
And Patrick
During
Stewart.
the Next
yeah.
Generation.
This is
They did
like-
it on the Captain's
I
Chair.
want to look up
Call me
Whoopi
Guinan.
Goldberg's
Call me Guinan. One night in Guinan.
One Night in God. There's a tape somewhere in Ted Danson's fucking
Yeah, Patrick Stewart, fucking Whoopi Goldberg.
and Ted Danson. Okay.
Move to the right.
Engage.
Come.
And then when they're done, it's tea Earl Grey hot.
That's right.
Jesus Christ. I have a great recommend, a fun recommend that I did not expect to like. It just came out on Netflix fairly recently. Gunpowder Milkshake. Karen Gillan is the titular. Well, actually, she's not titular because that's not her name. Her name is Sam. She is the assassin with the heart of gold. In this, we've seen it. We've seen it in Atomic Blonde. We've seen it in Peppermint. We've seen it in John Wick 3 times.
Professional.
We've seen it in The Professional. This very much reminds me of all of those of The Professional, with a twist. But we've seen these. The one that Chica Taraji P. Henson was in, Misunderstood, Miss Independent, Miss Bola, Miss
Ma?
No, that was Octavia Spencer.
Oh.
Taraji P. Henson was in one of these.
Look it up.
Misconstrued.
Miscongeniality?
Justice. I know what you're talking about. Miss Independent.
Miscarriage of Justice.
Let's see.
Mischievous.
That'd be a great stripper name. Mischievous.
Mischievous.
Don't. Jesus Christ. I mean, unless it's Coffee and Kareem.
No, I got it. Let's see.
Maybe it's not Taraji P. Henson.
I don't see the movie poster that's like Taraji P. Henson blowing people away.
It is Proud Mary.
Proud Miss Mary. Miss Proud Mary. Miss Independent.
It's Proud Mary that she did. So you know, all right. I love me some Karen Gillan, right? She was great she's been great as Nebula in the Avengers Marvel stuff. She's terrific in Jumanji, as she says. She calls it because she's Scottish. I didn't watch her in Doctor Who, but I hear she was very, very good in that. And she's absolutely a great actress and very funny. And she did a lot of press for this movie, this Gunpowder Milkshake. What it is she's an assassin that was trained by her mom, and she goes out to kill somebody, but that guy has a daughter that she, by happenstance, has to take care of. And that's the rest of the movie. She's got to go up against this big syndicate thing, like always, led by Paul Giamatti.
All right.
Always a welcome sight to see Paul G. And so, you know, it started off and I was like, all right, here's the same thing. The visuals in this movie are fucking rad. I'm not going to compare it because it's apples and oranges, but it's as much of a vibe as Tron Legacy. Meaning that the score is fantastic. The visuals, the colors are fantastic. Transfixing. And she is fantastic. There are fight scenes in this that are staged in a way that I've never seen before. And that takes a lot for me to say. She apparently did a lot of her own stunt work. And the supporting cast, last thing I'll say about this, the supporting cast is great. It's a bunch of women, Angela Bassett, Michelle Yeoh, and Googe, the Googe, Carla Gugino. Absolutely fantastic. Ralph Ineson plays the big bad. You know Ralph Ineson, right? The witch. The guy.
Oh, that guy.
The guy that talks like this.
He's in a million things.
I've got a big accent and I talk like this. Blah, blah, blah. He's in this as the big bad, and he's fantastic. He doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, but he's fantastic. So based on the cast alone, the stylization of it, this is a fun movie. I slacked everybody afterwards saying I'm sure this is one of those movies that has like 30% aggregate on Rotten Tomatoes. I didn't even look because I enjoyed this. I'm going to recommend it for sure. If you want just a fun time, it is a little violent. There's no dicks and fucks, but it is a little violent. But the cinematography is great. Karen Gillan is great, and the rest of the cast is spectacular. So go watch it.
Interesting.
Do we know another round, or do we know any questions?
Let's do it, baby.
I'm going to recommend Nobody.
Nobody.
Assassin with a Heart of Gold that I just watched.
Yes. Basically, if you saw any trailers earlier this year, you saw that it was normal dude Bob Odenkirk kicking a whole bunch of ass.
Yep.
In this movie, and much like, I mean, this is from the people who made John Wick, so again, it's something silly that sets off the whole. I mean, I guess the dog. It's in John Wick. It's a dog. We get the meaning of that, and it's upsetting. This one is like a bracelet.
It's a bracelet that leads to a completely different set of circumstances. But yeah, you're right.
Right. He spends the movie taking it from everybody in this movie. He's such a sad sack the whole time. He is bullied at his job, and he's in a marriage that looks like it's not going anywhere. Connie Nielsen once again showing up. There's a point where people break into his house, and he has the chance to do something and doesn't, and feels really, really shitty about it. And in the aftermath of this, he finds out that his little girl's bracelet is gone. So he's got to figure out. He of course, as always, when people go in and break in a home, there's an identifying mark. There's a tattoo on this one person's arm, and he's like, all right, I'm going to find out what tattoo parlor has
Why do
this.
people with tattoos even crime?
Right?
Yeah.
What is the point?
Yeah.
And so, yes, like Barrett was talking about, it leads him to something completely different. Then he starts, you can see that there's something in him. He's embarrassed that he never did anything. And he calls Christopher Lloyd, who we think is just his dad.
Yeah.
And he also talks to, is it RZA? He talks to RZA in this, who's, don't know if is ever shown on screen.
Yeah, he is at the
He
end.
is.
Yeah.
We hear his voice most of the time all the way through this, and RZA is, I think, trying to tell him not to do anything, but Bob Odenkirk is like, no, fuck this. Now we find out as this movie goes along, it's a weird bus scene that happens. These people run a stolen car into another stolen car, get out of that car, and then hijack the bus essentially. They all crowd around this girl on the bus, and Bob Odenkirk's like, all right, now I'm going to do something. I'm tired of the shit. And you see him, he's a fucking badass. And you're like, why has he been just being this normal dude this whole time, and now he can beat ass? Well, as it turns out, of course, he is this secret case file. Nobody from the government, something. He was trained. He's secret assassin kind of guy or whatever. Now that's intriguing, and I think that's where the story has to go. But it may be the only disappointing thing about this. I feel like you don't have another way to go on this. But I was kind of hoping it would just be this nobody who just has this natural skill.
Falling down type of thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Has this sort of natural skill he doesn't have all this government training and everything, but he does. So you kind of have to do that to explain how he's such a badass. But at the same time, I was kind of hoping it would just be exactly this. Nobody, a guy who's just kind of, he's a savant at fighting or something. And, but other than that, the fights are good. It's just an entertaining movie. You can't go wrong with this cast. Bob Odenkirk has been great for a long time. I keep, every time I see Bob Odenkirk in something like this, Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, whatever, I remember when he did commercials for like Miller Lite or something back in the 90s. This is right after Mr. Show. And Budweiser was doing those lizard commercials, and the lizard commercials they made fun of Bob Odenkirk. They said like, I guess they got that out of work actor to do this blah 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 blah. And I was like, that's kind of shitty to say about Bob Odenkirk, who at that time had Ben Stiller and Saturday Night Live and all that under his belt, Mr. Show, and then right after, he was started to show up in everything. And he directed that "Let's Go to Prison" movie,
That's
which
right.
is not. I
He
thought
wrote for The Simpsons during
kind of
that.
funny. That's Bill
term too, right?
Odenkirk.
Oh, yeah.
He's in The Cable Guy.
Yep. And then he finally lands Breaking Bad, and I'm like sitting there thinking watching this nobody movie, that Bud Light commercial popped into my head. The lizards talking about how this out of work actor and everything. Like, where are those assholes now?
Joke's on you, motherfuckers.
Yeah, bitches.
So I recommend Nobody. I think it's really good. I think if you like John Wick, you're gonna like this. If you like
Gunpowder Milkshake.
Yeah, if you like Gunpowder Milkshake, you'll like this movie.
They're very similar. Two things I really like about this movie is how much he wants to fight. When he goes to that tattoo parlor, he's like, there's three types of people. One that'll just go away, one that'll like threaten you, and then one that will pray to God that you guys do something to where I can beat your ass.
Yeah.
And you can see that coming through. Like, he just wants this. He needs this, that bus fight. He's like, it's not even like the reluctant hero of John Wick or, the other ones where it's like, well, I guess I've got to use my badass training. He can't wait. Like, he's been so repressed for so long. He's just like, yeah, let's do this. Even though he gets his ass kicked, he loves it. And the other thing is the villain, who I don't know his name, but he looks a lot like Rutger Hauer, is fun.
Yeah.
He's got a great intro, almost a one-shot intro, that's really entertaining. And then he does something that tells you he means business. And, he's entertaining. He's a little stock, but still, it's fun.
I was
like it a lot.
watching, as an aside, I was watching Pride and Prejudice, the Keira Knightley one, the other day, which is fantastic, and realized something I'd never realized. I've seen that movie 10 times. There's a glorious one-shot in the middle of that huge dance party where the camera pans back from the nebbish preacher guy that likes Elizabeth, and then he looks around and walks to the left, and then another character walks to the other direction, and then the camera follows them through the house and then turns around. I'll have to find it and cut it down into a YouTube video. It was over 2 minutes long, and I'd never noticed it before in my entire life. And there's only one place I can think of in there where he could have cut it, which means it was probably just really well staged. And anyway,
I don't know
Is that
anymore.
Joe Wright?
huh?
Is that Joe Wright?
Yeah, it's
that did
Joe,
that?
Joe
I
Wright.
think so,
Yeah. I am wondering about that now these days, especially with that movie Extraction, where it had the big, huge uncut shot, but it's been cut like 50 million times, and it's like gotten to the point now where I don't even know if they have to try very hard. Maybe they do. I'm talking out of my ass, but
Well, even 1917 had cuts in it, even though it looks like all one cut.
But they're also like obvious spots where he's cutting. He's obviously shooting long shots that, whatever. Extraction has this like unbelievable thing through a city where there's fighting, there's going stuff on the rooftops, goes back down to the street, all this. And it never cuts, but it cuts like 500
You can
times.
tell a million times where it's like, you're panning through that black car.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
Right.
Anyway, I was just one shot made me think of that. Pride and Prejudice of all movies. I'm going to wreck a warn, a movie that I am also going to spoil for the most part.
Oh.
And it's called A Hologram for the King.
Tommy Hanks?
God damn you. Yes, I was hoping you would never have heard of it, so I could follow that up by saying it stars Tom Hanks. And
Saudi Arabia, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you would go, what the fuck, like I did, because this is like a recent film, 2016.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks. I'm flipping channels going, how is fucking Tom Hanks in a movie 3-4 years ago that I've never heard of? There's literally nobody else in this that you know, except for one guy on hologram who was in Cloud Atlas, playing the guy that wrote the Cloud Atlas sextet. He's got like 3 lines in this movie. This is a movie where Tom Hanks' character used to work for Schwinn Bikes, made the decision to move the bike facility to China, which killed the company. He's now an executive with a tech company that does holograms, and he's come to Saudi Arabia to pitch the king on his company's hologram technology, because the king of Saudi Arabia is building a new Dubai, a new planned resort city. And one of the high-end things they're going to have here is hologram technology, and it looks like better than Star Wars holograms, I'll tell you that. It's in color.
Everything,
like Blade
everything
Runner
looks better than Star Wars
That's true.
hologram.
with 2 people on a stage, both holograms communicating with each other who are in other parts of the world. It's quirky, and it's kind of like a fish out of water movie for about 2/3 of it, because he's an American in Saudi Arabia. So first day he oversleeps, misses the shuttle, and so he has to call the guy who drove him from the airport, who's just a local cabbie who drives his own car to make money. This guy's pretty funny. Best part of the movie is this cabbie guy. Cabbie drives this guy, drives Tom Hanks all the way out into the boonies, where there's a big building and a tent, and that's it. And his team is in the tent, and they don't have any internet, and nobody brought him any food, and the king isn't there. And so he's like, well, I'm supposed to meet with this guy, the king's assistant. I'll go over this building and try and find him. He goes over to the building, and there's a receptionist there who says, oh, he's not here today. He'll be here tomorrow. You can call him anytime you want tomorrow. He'll be able to meet with you. Tom Hanks is like, okay. So he goes back and tells the people the bad news. They get in the shuttle. They go back to the hotel. Now, he's also got this weird growth on his back. And this is the David Cronenberg portion of the movie. He's got this big cyst on his back that he keeps inspecting and pushing and poking, and it's very gross, and I don't like it at all. So he oversleeps again the next morning and has to call the cabbie guy again. Gets out there, and the guy he's supposed to meet with is not there again, even though he promised he would be there. And the king is not coming again, even though they promised the king was coming. And so for a while, you're like, is this movie about him just being told to wait every day? Because it kind of is. And I was intrigued. I got up halfway through and went to my wife in the other room and said, this movie has a lot of cultural stuff in it. I had her watch $1 Million Arm because of all the India culture stuff in it, and she loved it. But then I go back to the movie, and it just gets terrible. Like, the king shows up, they do the hologram, he pokes his back blister and has to go for surgery. There's this woman doctor who wears a hijab, and the cabbie thinks Tom Hanks shouldn't be alone in the room with her because of Saudi rules, and Tom Hanks is like, she's my doctor, how am I supposed to blah? Gets the thing excised off of his back, asks the lady doctor out on a date, and she takes him to her brother's mansion, and they swim naked, and then they have sex that is shot passionately, like it's not a 60-year-old. It's one of the most uncomfortable sex scenes I've ever seen in my life. It was Tom Hanks and this Saudi doctor woman naked in a bed, and there's sweat and there's groaning and it's shot sexy. And it's just this huge ass fucking left turn. I'm left to believe this is a real person. This is a real story. And the reason the movie makes no sense is because this guy's life just took a hard fucking left turn. Because after he sleeps with the woman, it's just like, it's him. Oh, it turns into You've Got Mail. He starts writing his daughter emails. Dear Kitty, we didn't win the contest with holograms, but I found a job over here as a realtor. I think I'm going to stay in fucking Saudi Arabia because he fell in love with this woman who saved his back blister. I don't know, man. This movie... I've actually decided to warn it. I wrote Wreck a Warn, but I'm going to go ahead and go with warn. Hanks is fine.
Sure.
It's a charming premise.
Is the doctor played by the woman who was in Lady in the Water? The M. Night's sister?
Very maybe.
Okay.
Because those movies are at least 11 years apart. I'm not sure I would have recognized her.
Okay.
It may be. I'll look on the IMDb. Let's see if that's her. Is she in it?
Yes.
Oh, then that's who that is. Yeah.
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 Huh. All right.
And she's a good actress. All the performances are good. It's just the story seemed like it was a fish out of water American making it in another land, and then it turned into this body horror thing, and then it turned into this like fucking like 50 Shades of old people.
Is it all in English or is it some in Arabic?
Plenty in Arabic, but it's almost all subtitled for you.
Okay. It's a Saudi producer, I think. I have to think that
this is what they think
somebody
Hollywood is?
backed up a fucking truck to Tom Hanks' house.
Interesting.
And absolutely showered him with money.
I bet you, just from what I bet you they shot that in 2 weeks.
And also...
And he probably made $50 million or
the
something.
director is Tom Tykwer, I don't know how to pronounce the name, who did Cloud Atlas.
Oh, that's why one of the guys
wow.
in there.
Yeah, and this guy's also a composer of many of his own movies.
Interesting.
So, but he also did Run Lola Run, which is probably his
most famous, probably.
Yeah.
I love Lola. Run Lola. I love Lola Lola.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
a Lola.
Yeah, when we were doing the Tom Hanks list, we went through and did his career. I saw that, and I looked at it, and like all of these Saudi names for production and stuff like that, and I was like, it just doesn't seem like something Hanks would typically do. And I bet you it was just like, you know, you hear about Beyonce going over to sing for the King of Jordan or something like that, right? And it's because they have a redonkulous amount of money that they can throw at you.
Could be.
And I think Beyonce made like, $10 million from one night or something like that to do it, and it's worth it to royalty in Arabic nations because you get the Western people coming over to entertain your guests, and you're seen as like the fucking man. Maybe that's what this is.
In future parties, you can say, I'm going to put in the movie I made with Tom Hanks from America.
Yeah. Here's my Tom Hanks movie.
Yeah.
God bless him. I mean, hey, he got paid. He got paid, and then he got COVID. He got paid and then COVID.
Yep.
Cool. I've got a surprising one. Very big recommend. How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? A Bee Gees documentary.
Nice.
Whoa. This was an accident. Flipped it on HBO, and I saw Noel Gallagher on there from Oasis. And I was like, ooh, he's a right ornery sot.
He's a right foul git.
Yep.
He's a right foul git. But he's also a really good interview, and I like Oasis. So I was like, what is this? Turned out, found it at the very beginning of this documentary about the birth of the Bee Gees. If you don't remember, the Bee Gees were a band of brothers. Robin, Andy, Morris, and Barry. Right, all the Gibbs. And they're most famous for Saturday Night Fever soundtrack and disco. But this thing goes through all of their stuff of being like starting off as a almost folk gospel band, and how amazing songwriters they are. I was transfixed. Now Barry is the only one that's still alive. The rest of them are dead. But they had archival interviews with all of them. Very, very well done. The whole thing is very well done. Frank Marshall, who directed a few interesting ones. Arachnophobia, Alive, Congo,
Yep.
and 8 Below, which I forgot what 8 Below was.
That's the Paul Walker dog movie.
Ah, that's right. So he's got an interesting kind of background. But it's so well done. And you go through, it's a fairly straightforward documentary about a musical band and all the ups and downs of the famous, and they break up for a second, and they come back together and everything. Then Saturday Night Fever hits, and it's the best-selling album of all time to that point. And they are best well-known for disco, one of the originators of the disco sound. Now, I did not realize that is not them. They have done a million different things, and it just happened to be that they're most well known for that. But they're like, everybody hated us. Everybody went from loving us to hating us because we were associated with disco. We didn't invent disco. We only did like 1 or 2 disco albums, and then we moved on to other stuff. And it really, really took a toll on them. It does avoid all the typical trappings of like a Bohemian Rhapsody type of like, bottoming out and then coming up, rising like a phoenix or anything like that. It's just, like a normal course of 4 brothers, well, eventually 4 brothers, in a band that are absurdly talented. It's really good. And the only thing, so Nick Jonas is in there from Jonas Brothers. Like a lot of brother bands that are like, this is really weird.
Hanson?
You guys have brothers. Hanson is not in there, weirdly enough.
Son of a bitch.
You guys have brothers. I don't know what it's like to grow up with a brother, but I realize that it's complicated. You mentioned there was a sibling thing happening there. A sibling is not always that you get along all the time.
Right.
To me, as essentially an only child, I was like, I don't understand that. I feel like siblings, when you get to a certain age, are always going to be tight and close and that kind of thing, but it doesn't always work like that. And so there's some of that going on. Best thing about this documentary is the drummer is still alive. And so he did Night Fever. Night Fever, Night Fever, you don't have, well. Right. So they did that. And then the drummer, when they were recording Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, which was an album too, he had to leave. His dad had Alzheimer's, and he had to go and go back to England. They were recording in America somewhere. So, he did that, but they really wanted to lay down Staying Alive. And, or no, that's superstition, sorry, but like, well, you can tell by the way I use my welcome. And so that the first part of that is a drum beat. It's like boom, ta, da, boom, boom, ta, boom, boom. What they did was, while dude was away, they did the first ever. You would love this scene. You would love this scene. It was like an interlock. They looped the drums from Night Fever, same track, slowed it down a little bit.
Wow.
And that's the entirety of that song.
Oh, wow.
Is that drum loop. You could see him in the studio. They were stretching out, because it was reel-to-reel at that point. They were stretching it out all to the far edge of the control room and running it through different loops so that they could get enough tape to actually get the song done.
Oh, wow.
And that's all that song is. And I was like, fuck yeah!
That's
That's
awesome.
the shit that I love,
That's
man.
So you mean they strung? How did they do that?
So they spliced out, they took that sample. Now, this is obviously before an audition or something like that now. We could take a chunk and replicate it until the cows come home. But in that period, this is 1974, somewhere around there, they had to cut out that splice of the tape, then find a way to loop that over and over without getting any cuts or missing frames or missing measures in there. And to do that without having to reset the reel-to-reel, they had to loop it all the way down, or they had to loop it around like a fucking rebar system.
Oh,
That was it. And they looped it all the way down to where it would last, I think Staying Alive is like 3.5 minutes or something like that, to where they had enough tape all the way through with that exact same drum beat. Now, you can't replicate that exact measure because you've only got that amount of tape, right? It's not like copy paste.
Right.
They had to figure out how to do it. Apparently, it's one of the first times that anybody's done that in music, in popular music. And it was just there was these two studio geeks. They were like, we worked 16 hours a day during this album, and they're both old, and they were like, fuck a bunch of that, man. But he was like, this guy, I came up with the idea, and this guy put it in place, and it's so cool, man. Awesome. So yeah, you should check out. The Bee Gees are a lot more than Saturday Night Fever. Now, I've always loved the Beatles. I've always loved the Bee Gees since a young age. For whatever reason, I like disco. I don't mind any disco stuff. Well, some disco, but I always liked the Bee Gees because they were always percussive. They were always great songwriters. But this gave me a new appreciation, and I was happy to see it. Now, after this. Did I watch Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake do the Barry Gibb talk show from SNL for an hour? Yes. Yes, I did. Yep. Because do you have anything to say about that?
It's such a funny sketch.
Talking about chest hair. Talking about crazy cool medallions. It's very, very good. Jimmy Fallon, I've got a whole rant about Jimmy Fallon being way underrated these days, but that's a talk for another day.
All right, everybody, it's time to talk about BetterHelp.
Yes, it is BetterHelp. I have two bits of very, very good news. One is the best news, and one is a little personal. The first one is we keep getting people, most recently, like I think yesterday, people that signed up for BetterHelp.
Nice.
They contact us. Now, these are just the people we know of. One of our listeners said, after you guys talked about this for so long, I decided to give it a try. So I'm good to go. I could not be happier about that. That is the coolest thing. Listen, I know we've been talking about BetterHelp for a while. It's important to us for people who need it to get help. And BetterHelp is a great way to do it. Online counseling, licensed professional counselors at your leisure. Like you can book your appointments, you can interact with your counselor, you can do video sessions, you can do chat sessions. This is very satisfying to me. Another thing, I'll just say briefly. I have been doing BetterHelp now for a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer. I had a breakthrough.
Ooh, a breakthrough.
For real ass.
I'm not making fun.
Listen, I've had times where I finish a session, I feel good. I feel like weight's been lifted off my shoulders and everything. And I've had, listen, to be honest, I've had lots to think about at times after sessions. But just in the last month or so, I had serious breakthrough.
That's awesome.
And man, it's a lot of work to get there, but it is so satisfying. It's like if you can break, I don't know, a 6-minute mile if you're a runner or something like that, and you try, or you can weight lift 250 pounds after trying it over and over again.
Or a skateboarder and you finally land that 1080.
Exactly. It's incredibly satisfying. It takes a lot of work, folks, but I can tell you, having gone through a lot and having this most recent experience, it is totally worth it.
BetterHelp was already here doing this, offering this.
They were.
And then the pandemic comes along, and a lot of people in in-person therapy had to start doing teletherapy.
Mm-hmm.
I have a good friend that was doing this for a year. So this friend started going back to in-person therapy after the vaccination and their therapist's vaccinations for about 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Going once a week or so. And now, guess what? Have to start wearing masks again.
Yeah.
And in a couple weeks, they're talking about maybe going back to telehealth because we got this Delta variant ravaging through the state of Tennessee. And so a lot of in-person therapy is going to do what? Go back to telehealth. And who was there already? The pioneers.
Yep.
BetterHelp.
Yep.
And it's not just the telehelp. It's probably the biggest benefit that I think that we promote. It's the easiest to see the impact. But there's so much convenience on that website in terms of messaging back and forth with your therapist, in terms of the ways you can have therapy on the phone or on video. It's just so much flexibility there. And this service was great before the pandemic. It's great during the pandemic, and it's going to be great after the pandemic. And if you're thinking about therapy, don't wait any longer.
This is it. BetterHelp.com/Sincast. You get a special offer, 10% off your first month. Last thing I want to say about this is that, y'all, first of all, the pandemic ain't over. I know we want to think it is, but it ain't over. Second of all, I keep reading article after article about how overdoses went up drastically over the pandemic. We all dealt with all that stress in different ways. If you feel like you're a little out of control with any substance issue, BetterHelp can address that. Let them know when you kind of click on that BetterHelp.com/Sincast. Tell them what's going on with you. Answer a few questions. You get matched to a therapist within 24 hours, and you're on your way. Be honest. Figure out what the issues are. They can help you address them. BetterHelp.com/Sincast. If you waited like a few of our listeners have fairly recently, it is now the time, folks. BetterHelp. Do it. BetterHelp.com/Sincast. Get out.
Doing a roundup. Barrett recommended gun shouter milk cake.
That sounds sexier than this one.
It does. Gunpowder milkshake. He recommended that. He also recommended the Bee Gees. How can you mend a broken heart? Jeremy recommended Robot and Frank. He also warned a hologram for the king. And I warned Zola and recommended nobody.
Okay, you're warning Zola. You think it's mostly because of expectations? Like, is it a well-done movie, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything bad necessarily. But if you go in there expecting the wildest, craziest story you've ever seen, you're not going to enjoy this movie.
I got you.
Now, the fact that this happened to this person, as much as we can trust this person, it does get that sense of, oh my God, really? You experienced that? That's crazy. But really and honestly, I was really expecting a lot, especially the whole thing with now watch every move this bitch makes. Yeah. And I was like, oh, she's doing some master plan in this. Nope. Nope.
And you've probably seen that trailer about a zillion times, too, right?
I had, yeah. Time for questions?
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I am listening.
Excuse me.
All right.
Jesus Christ, Jeremy. Get your shit together.
Excuse me.
I like your shirt, by the way.
Thank you. I saved trees.
Good for you. All right, this is a good one. Oh, we've got some good ones. Keep them coming. Send them to cinemasensendcast@gmail.com, Twitter, SoundCloud, Facebook. Anything, baby. Let us know. I just found out July is Disability Awareness Month. Did not realize that. It's probably too late to get it on board as a topic, but I thought I'd send it in as a question. I know Sound of Metal has received a lot of praise, but I feel like it's still in an area where bad/unhelpful portrayals outnumber the good in movies. What is a movie that gave you a new perspective on a disability? This person's first thought was the French movie The Untouchables, but honestly, I came up with more thoughts of lazy or inaccurate movies than good ones. It's a very, very good question. Untouchables, as we've said before, is a outstanding movie that does talk about disability, in this case paralysis is his thing, or ALS or something like that. I
actually don't remember his actual condition.
But yeah, no, and you're right. There are times for every Untouchables you get There's Something About Mary.
Yes.
Or something like that. So what do you guys think?
There's Something About Mary. No, I'm just kidding. This is a documentary, so it may be cheating in some way to the spirit of the question. But Murder Ball.
Oh, yeah.
One of these is where it's a bunch of quadriplegics who play rugby, and they go to each one and talk about their stories, and you learn, like, hey, they have girlfriends, and hey, they do this, they have this kind of life outside of this and everything, but also they can get on, like, when you watch them actually playing this game, it's like, oh my god,
shit's for real.
Holy shit, dude. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, this is even if you got an able-bodied person to get into wheelchairs and try to play rugby, you have to learn a lot of shit to get to this point.
Is it rugby or basketball? It could be that there's two of them.
Maybe there are two of them.
I hope it's basketball, because one of my Abel's books makes a reference to this documentary and refers to it as basketball. Wouldn't be the first mistake in those books.
The description says rugby. Now, what's funny is when I came up with the thought of Murder Ball, I thought it was basketball too, but then I saw the description that said rugby. And I was like, well, maybe I fucked this up.
I wonder if it's both.
Okay, have we found a glitch in the Matrix here? Because the documentary introduces the U.S. quad rugby team.
Maybe it's rugby.
You specially play full contact competitive rugby using rules only slightly altered to accommodate their limitations.
Okay.
It must be rugby, yeah.
It's rugby, and I think I thought it was basketball because they're in a gym, and that's ableist of me.
Well, and they have these balls that don't look like rugby balls. They're round.
Right.
Okay, good. Because I too, when I thought of Murder Ball, was like, that was the basketball one, right? Yeah. And then I started reading the description on it, was rugby. So
I fucked up my book.
Yeah, so they're talking about it's kind of amazing to watch how good they are at this type of thing, and just how they have decided that, I'm going to live the best life that I can and everything. I think before this movie came out, if you heard the word quadriplegic, you thought they probably don't get a chance to do very many things. And this movie really set me in the in a different direction, because I was like, holy shit, these guys. They're like beating each other up on the court.
Yeah, it's not just like, good sportsmanship and everything. It's like they want to take each other's heads off.
Yeah. So
good one. Good one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with a couple. And there's a theme. The Peanut Butter Falcon.
Oh.
Which I just rewatched part of again yesterday. That movie's really charming. And A Quiet Place. And both of these, it's kind of a meta answer to the question, because both of these employ actors who have the disability of their characters. So in The Peanut Butter Falcon, the guy playing the Down syndrome character has Down syndrome. And in A Quiet Place, the gal who plays the daughter is deaf.
Is she really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And when watching The Peanut Butter Falcon, I was struck by how much more capable this guy is than we give him credit for. To not only turn in a good acting performance, but to act. Every Down syndrome case is unique. Some are more severe than others. The only 3 or 4 people I've ever known with Down syndrome in my life did not seem like people who could understand the concept of a film set and acting, let alone learning lines, understanding that when Shia LaBeouf is yelling at you and cussing you, he's in character and he doesn't actually mean it. And it really opened my eyes. With The Quiet Place, it was more that movie is such a quiet experience, right? Because it's trying to use sound in an opposite way of what you're used to. But I was struck watching her sign and knowing that she was deaf for real. She lives this movie every day. Mm-hmm. Like, for me, this is an exceptional, rare, once-a-movie experience that I can't hear very much.
Yeah.
That's her everyday freaking life, man.
Yeah.
And it just, I am slowly going deaf, but I'm not completely deaf, but it gave me a little bit more perspective, appreciation, I think, and it actually started my ass into learning sign language all over again. So I think that answers the question, maybe in a meta way, but those are my 2 answers.
All right.
I did not realize that girl was deaf,
Mm-hmm.
was actually deaf.
Mm-hmm.
God, that's such a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes these people just come out of nowhere and just expertly. Jordan Peele was one of them, where it's like, seriously, Get Out is your first feature ever directing? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I feel like Krasinski got all the cards, and I'm a little mad at him. He's funny. He's incredibly looking. Incredibly looking?
He's incredibly looking.
Incredible looking.
He's talented.
Talented. He can direct. He can act.
Even though apparently, like, whenever somebody finds out that Emily Blunt is his wife, they're always like, really? And he's like, it's like I can't remember what story he was telling, but he said I think he was going through customs or something. And he goes, I think I've seen you before. And he's like, yeah, I'm in the office or whatever. And he goes, I'm waiting for my wife. He's like, really? Who's you married to? Emily Blunt. And he goes, you're married to Emily Blunt? And he's like, yeah, I get that a lot.
God bless him, man. He seems like a funny guy too.
Oh,
he
yeah.
seems like
I think he's
an okay
probably
guy.
a real guy.
I've got some interesting ones. I got a bunch of them, so bear with me here. I did just start watching because my wife was watching this, a show called Atypical on Netflix. This show is great. It's got Jennifer Jason Leigh as an overbearing mother, Michael Rappaport, whom I don't really love all the time.
He
as an
had his
actor.
moment in the 90s.
He did. He's great in this. He's great in this. It's Keir Gilchrist is a kid with autism spectrum disorder, ASD as they call it. He plays it beautifully. I don't believe he actually has autism, but the lack of eye contact, the social interactions that are awkward, the fixation on mundane details, things like that, very, very good, and it affects the whole family, and I like that a lot. Cheating, not a movie, but one that really stands out to me is how Breaking Bad treated all of their characters, whether they were hair impaired, which seemed like a lot of people, or just general impairments. My favorite part is Walter Jr. I don't know if they ever, maybe once or twice, very rarely mentioned that he had, is it MS or something like that he had?
I actually don't remember.
I'm not certain they ever mentioned
some sort of movement disorder that affects his manner of speech, his legs. He has to walk with supports. That character, I mean, he hangs out with his friends. He gets girls. He's popular, and he doesn't take shit from his parents. He's a normal kid.
The show did a lot to destigmatize and not play up for sympathy, his condition. But again, there's another instance where the actor actually has that condition.
Yeah.
And it brings a level of authenticity to the role. that I think is important. This is why disability should be played by people with disabilities.
Yeah,
That's a
I
whole
mean,
other
it's no fucking big deal in that series at all.
No.
And it's very cool. I mean, and you could say the same for Hector Salamanca in the opposite side of it.
Yeah.
You think he's a doddering old man. He's not even doddering. He's in a wheelchair. He's mute. Everything is essentially, when they're sitting there waiting for, when Jesse and Walt are sitting there waiting for Tuco to get his shit together, they think Hector's not even listening to him. He turns out to be one of the most menacing characters in that entire series. And you could say the same for Hank when he gets disabled after the car and the shooting. I mean, God, that seemed like a whole season.
It was
that he was laid up.
he was rehabbing and laid up and collecting gems.
Yeah.
For a whole season. Yeah,
Yeah, and they played that a different way, where it really affected him.
Well, and then he had PTSD when he went back out into the field.
Yeah. I love the way that they portrayed all that stuff. Addiction, just absolutely genius. So yeah, you do need to go back and watch the 1962 version of The Miracle Worker with Anne Bancroft and Patty Duke. You don't like this movie?
No, I just wanted to be contrary. I don't know. Go ahead.
That movie's brilliant, man. Anne Bancroft as the therapist that finally gets through to Helen Keller is amazing. The whole water scene where she teaches her the signs, because she's deaf, mute, and blind. And so how do you even start? I can't even imagine this person's journey. And it's a beautiful story. Helen Keller went on to be an activist and, very engaged. And it took this person to get through to her. It's amazing. I'll also mention an underrated classic, Benny and June, with Mary Stuart Masterson, Aidan Quinn, and Johnny Depp, where Mary Stuart Masterson has a severe mental illness. And it doesn't treat her with kid gloves. Last one is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. We've talked about it before. Anxiety disorder with... The guy's got a complicated history, the Logan Lerman character, with trauma, with anxiety, and depression. It's great. Well done. Well addressed.
R.J. Mite, who played Walter Jr., had cerebral palsy.
Cerebral palsy.
Ah,
I almost
that's right.
said that.
If you've got that pulled up, do you know if he's been in anything else?
I had to...
He's a great-looking guy, too. I mean, he's no Krasinski, but he's rocking shit.
He has been doing movies that look like they're going straight to whatever video. He's got 7 projects though lined up.
Good for him.
So he's got a bunch of he's done quite a few movies.
He's a good actor, man. He some of those scenes with Walt, especially towards the latter seasons, are heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I think in the Ozymandias episode where he goes after him with the knife.
Oh yeah.
He physically puts himself between Walt and Skyler. That was the ultimate for that character for me, because he doesn't. There's no way he can stop Walt if Walt really wants to keep going. But the son didn't care. The son was like, "This is all I can do." I'm jumping in front of this bullet. Anyway,
That's good stuff.
moving on.
All right, next question. Next question. On your mini-pod for Black Widow, I think it was Baird that said that this movie really works with that cast, and only really that cast could have played those characters. And the same could be said for a lot of movies. I was wondering if you could think of any examples where it works in reverse. Do you think some movies would have been elevated or even outright better if they had a different cast or even different characters from their source materials? This example is controversial because who doesn't like Tom Hardy? Well, I think The Dark Knight Rises would have been better if they've gotten the Riddler instead of Bane as a villain, and the Riddler was played by Johnny Depp. Of course, we've talked about it before. Looks like they wanted to bring Heath Ledger's Joker back for that third one. Obviously, that did not work out. I think it would be interesting to have the Riddler, but I see your point. What do you guys think?
I was thinking maybe in Clerks 2, Rosario Dawson doesn't play the character she plays.
No.
And I love Rosario Dawson. I want to see Rosario Dawson in everything. And we've even interviewed Brian O'Halloran, but I don't think that Brian O'Halloran can land a Rosario Dawson. And none of that makes sense to me in that whole movie, that, you know, they had some one night tryst or whatever that's leading to a baby and everything. If we want to recast that, I feel like somebody like Ricky Lindholm, or Kate Micucci, who's her partner in crime in the Garfunkel and Oates. Gets those two women are still attractive, but I also think that they are more around the Brian O'Halloran, league and
They're
everything.
Quirky.
Yes, and so that's the thing, that Clerks 2 is fine, and I know that Kevin Smith prefers this one over his original and all that. I don't, but I think it has like some better scenes overall than Clerks. But Clerks is funnier and everything. But yeah, Rosario Dawson is just some otherworldly beauty that you have to have somebody like Matt Damon or somebody like that.
Yeah, with a mullet.
Roseanne. Yeah, exactly. You'd have somebody like that landing her. You can't. I don't know. Rosario Dawson, for all I know, is super down to earth. I think she's dating Cory Booker right now.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
But she would go for somebody like that. But I don't know. It just doesn't.
She should be with the senator.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't come across in the movie that would ever happen. Even as much as they try, even much as Kevin Smith tries to make it look like it's a thing.
Because he's dating Jen Swalback.
Yes.
And Rosario Dawson is like the manager of the movies. And he's
Yes.
like a shift supervisor, right?
Yeah.
So it's not even the looks. It's the situation he's in. It's not like, he's corporate and they have this administrative connection or anything like that. He's like a schlub still.
Yeah.
And we love Brian.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
And in all fairness, I think even Kevin Smith has joked with Brian O'Halloran about this. Like, there's no fucking way you're getting a Rosario Dawson. But every time something like this comes up, it sounds like, oh, you're being mean, or totally that can happen. I've seen couples like that or whatever, and it's like, it's just the way it comes across in the movie itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my pick.
Nice.
I got two answers for this question. The first is I'm going to piggyback on your question asker and say, just give me Bane. Just give me the real Bane.
Yeah.
Just give me Bane.
Yeah.
It's one of the only comic book arcs that I have read multiple times is the Nightfall run. This was when I was in college. And in the first volume, Bane shows up. And what makes Bane an awesome villain is that he is as strong as Batman. Yes, due to this venom stuff that he sucks.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. He has to for a medical condition. But it also makes him strong. But he's smarter. He's smarter than Bruce Wayne. And so he comes to town. He's figured out who Batman is. And he wears him the fuck out. He releases people from Arkham so they can go out, and Batman has to chase them down one by one, and one by one, and one by one, and put them all back. And finally, he's exhausted, and now he has to face off against Bane. And Bane breaks his back. Now, Batman, in this run, has been training a protege. Jean-Paul Valley is his name.
Jean-Paul.
Jean-Paul. Well, after Batman's back is broken, he disappears. And he goes off for ancient mystic healing for 6 months,
Tied
12
up to a
months.
rope.
But I'm not talking about the movie. I'm talking about the actual story.
Oh, okay.
And this Jean-Paul Valley guy, who's taken over for Batman, it's not so good, folks. He doesn't mind killing.
Oh.
And he creates his own suit, and it's made of armor, and he starts being a true scary vigilante. And he defeats Bane. And then Batman comes back, and at this point, his understudy is going by the name Azrael and is more powerful than Batman or Bane, and Batman has to take him down. That would make a hell of a trilogy.
Why didn't they do that?
And what sucks is that they tried to sneak in so much Bane in The Dark Knight Rises with the Batman breaking his back and then healing and coming back, and the Bane releases the prisoners from prison. But they were so tied to tying this back into the beginning with the League of Shadows and Ra's al Ghul and whatnot that it really hamstrung what they were able to do with Bane, because then they made him just a mercenary.
Yeah.
I mean, Bane should be fucking Thanos, man. Like, he came to town with a plan.
Yeah.
And he's not just going to go... He's not just going to... In the movies, he gets to fight a Batman who hasn't fought in 8 years and has arthritis and no cartilage.
Yeah.
I could beat that Batman.
Yeah.
In the comics, he beat Batman at his peak in his brain and his body. That's why Bane rules. All right. My other answer.
Why didn't they do that?
I don't know. My other answer is I sometimes wonder if Primal Fear might not be a complete classic if Richard Gere and Laura Linney had been replaced by people like Gary Oldman, Willem Dafoe, Holly Hunter, or Sally Field, because that Ed Norton performance is, first of all, so standout. But that's all we talk about. Mm-hmm. That's all we talk about, because God bless Richard Gere, he can't hold his own in that scene the way a Gary
He's
Oldman
doing Richard
could.
Gere.
He's doing Richard Gere, and Laura
Linney.
Linney's doing Laura Linney, and I feel like both of those are the two opposing counsel in the case, and they used to have a fling. I think you go up a notch to a couple Oscar winners there in that role, and I bet that movie, it as a whole, is considered.
You know what I would do? I would stab him 58 times.
That's a good point, man. Because Richard Gere, look, he ain't no slouch. He's good, but he's got his thing. He's got his Richard Gere thing. Even in something like Chicago, where he's talented and he's singing and he's dancing, it's Richard Gere. Yeah, I got you.
Oh yes.
I like those picks. Okay, you guys haven't seen this movie, rightfully so, because it blows. But Army of the Dead, the new Zack Snyder joint that just came out on Netflix not too long ago. Dave Bautista is the main guy, and look, movie's balls overall.
Smells like balls.
But one of the reasons is that Dave Bautista, God bless him, we've talked about it before. He's good as Drax. He's very good in that Blade Runner 2049 scene. I haven't seen Stuber, but I don't think he's very good in that.
No, Stuber sucks.
This guy is not my kind of guy, man. Like, I don't. He's not leading man. If you replaced him with somebody with personality, any personality, even The Rock in that movie would make that movie watchable. But I chose the aforementioned John Krasinski because I think he's old enough to where he can play where he's got a teenage daughter that goes in and shenanigans ensue. And I feel like with all the Jack Ryan stuff, he's got some kind of like physical presence now. But Bautista, I don't know, man. I don't know why. Good for him. He seems like an interesting guy. I don't know him, obviously, but I don't think he was right for this part at all. Throw me some Rock. Throw me some, even John Cena, John Krasinski. Give me somebody with a personality. Davey does not have that. And then the other one, another fantastical movie. In Wonder Woman, it always was disappointed that David Thewlis was the end villain. No, I love David Thewlis. Last episode, I was talking about how great he was as Remus Lupin in the Harry Potter movies. David Thewlis is not going to play Ares in my dream version of Wonder Woman. The ones that I picked, I was thinking about Keith David, just because another mention of Keith David, because he's so charismatic and so intimidating. I don't give a shit about race. I know that they were Nazis, whatever. Fuck it. Or Lawrence Fishburne, man. Somebody with gravitas. They could play a god, but also, somebody that is a little, secretive and subversive and stuff like that. I think that could happen.
Have you ever seen the movie called Naked?
Is that a Thewlis joint?
Thulis is in it. Mike Lee directed it. I have a
think I
feeling you might
have.
like that if you haven't seen it.
I know what you're talking about. I can see the poster.
Thulis is like a total asshole in that movie.
Yes.
But I need to see it again. I haven't seen it since it came out, but I remember him being really good. We did have an outtake from Naked.
Seriously?
In the Prisoner of Azkaban video, because he just so happens to be talking about turning into a werewolf in Naked.
It's a 90s movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember that coming out. Maybe I haven't seen it, but obviously if it was a 90s movie, I watched it because it was called Naked. Mm-hmm. I'm like Bart and Milhouse when they went to see Naked Lunch.
Yep. I can think of 2 things wrong with that title. That's going to do it for this week. Keep going to Sincast, presented by CinemaSins on Facebook. We're also on CinemaSins Twitter, Music Video Sins Twitter, Discord, and SoundCloud. That's going to do it for this mini-pod. I was about to say mini-pod.
That's a maxi.
Yeah, this was a maxi-pod. That'll do it for this here Sincast. It's Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, and Barrett Shear. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
Every cat we ever had growing up, this is how it happened. Mom would see a kitten, fall in love, bring it home, and Dad would find out when he got home. And as much as I wanted those kittens when I was a kid, that's not exactly a cool way to, like, do marriage. Like, you need to make decisions like that together, right?
I feel like you're going to end up with a cat when you go
I'm
home.
actually more interested in a dog because there's so many fucking assholes that adopted animals in the pandemic but have returned them now.
Yeah.
So there are a bunch of young dogs that need homes, and we want to get a dog, but we don't want to get a puppy because it's probably too much work for us.
It is a lot of work.
And so last night I was looking at rescue dogs. And now today she's like, I see an orange kitty. Maybe
Another orange one? You should at least get one with a different fucking color.
I don't think we'll ever have a cat that's not orange.
It does suck seeing animals that need homes, even though you have no room for more. Yep. Like I go into PetSmart and there's all these little kittens in the glass, and I'm like, oh, kitties, and then I'm like, yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is kind of like that. I mean, you have to be kind of stern with yourself.
You do. You got to be a callous motherfucker.
Mm-hmm. It's like, look, I'm taking care of 3 already. I'm not gonna be like the cat lady in The Simpsons throwing cats. Didn't Jonathan used to have 4 big Saint Bernards?
Yep, and puppies. They had a litter of I think 4 or 5. When he was at his old place.
You'd go into this one room where there were these giant cages. And then there was like 4 big ass dogs. They were all sweet, but
Stormy, well, they used to show them. And Stormy was their prize saint, and they came up to Louisville for a dog show. Mm-hmm. And stayed at my place, and that was the biggest crate I've ever seen in my entire life. It was like I could fit 2 of me in that crate. Mm-hmm. It took up our entire living room.
You should try it.
I crawled in there. Yeah, it was fine.
It was fine. It was fine.
Yeah, they used to do dog shows. I went to a dog show in Murfreesboro with them one time, and it's extremely like Best in Show. It's extremely like Best in Show.
I have no doubt.
My 2 that are